Sinister nighttime drives, terrifying true encounters that will haunt your every ride home. Jessica took a deep breath as she climbed into her old SUV, ready to take the familiar route home after another grueling nursing shift. She had done this drive countless times through Millfield, a town that was supposed to be safe, sleepy. But tonight felt different. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, the roads cloaked in an ominous darkness, and a sinister chill hung in the air, making her skin prickle. It was just a drive home, until it wasn't. As she rounded the bend near the abandoned school, Jessica caught a flash of headlights in her rearview mirror. A menacing pickup truck loomed behind her, its brights cutting through the darkness like a knife. Her pulse quickened. Something was off. The truck matched her speed, creeping closer, terrifying memories of local gossip echoing in her mind. Disappearances, whispers of a respected councilman involved in something nefarious, floated back to her. What if the tales were true? As she gripped the steering wheel, every warning of danger and deceit swirled into a panic that clawed at her insides. Jessica's heart raced as the pickup truck swerved, its driver signaling her to pull over. "It's an emergency!" he shouted, but his voice possessed a calm that sent ice shooting through her veins. An emergency? Or just bait in a web of treachery? She glanced around, searching for help, but the streets were empty, suffocatingly silent save for the throbbing pulse of her anxiety. Here she was, in her own neighborhood, feeling trapped in a predator's game. Before she could think, sheer instinct kicked in. She slammed on the gas and swerved into an unfamiliar side road, the world flashing past her in a blur. The trees seemed to close in, and the shadows warped into malicious figures clawing at her. Who could she trust? Each turn felt like a gamble, inching deeper into the reality that the town she thought was home might be hiding something far more sinister. The Guardian, so often spoken of in hushed tones, had a dark reputation. What if he hunted the innocent? Feeling the pickup breathing down her neck, Jessica's mind raced for an escape route, each glance in the mirror producing a jolt of terror. The driver was relentless, hooded eyes masked by darkness, his intentions unreadable. Just when she thought she saw a break in the shadows, a flicker of headlights shone behind her. The pickup was relentless, a wolf stalking its prey, ready to pounce at any moment. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With terror clawing at her throat, she spotted the flicker of an abandoned convenience store up ahead. It was now or never, her potential refuge or another cruel trap. She veered onto the side road, not giving in to the rising dread. Hope briefly flickered, but it vanished the moment her heart sank. Would she escape the suffocating grasp of Millfield's hidden horrors? Or would she become just another story whispered about on dark nights? Only the flickering overhead lights of the store stood witness to her desperate choice, leaving her to wonder if she was stepping toward safety, or the darkness itself. As she jolted into the rundown parking lot of the convenience store, Jessica's heart thumped like a drum in her chest. The oppressive darkness loomed around her, swallowing the faded facade of the building. She barely had time to register its shattered windows and the yawning void of the entrance before the pickup truck skidded to a stop behind her, blocking any chance of escape. Jessica's fingers trembled as she reached for her phone, desperate to call for help, but her hands were slick with sweat. The realization hit her. No reception in this god-forsaken part of Millfield. Panic surged through her, a cold wave that threatened to drown her rational thought. She shoved the phone back into her pocket, eyes darting to the driver's window of the truck. The driver emerged, shadowy and towering like a specter rising from the depths. He loomed there, his figure outlined against the glare of the headlights, grinning with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Looking for something?" he called out, his voice oily and smooth, laced with mockery. Jessica's instincts screamed at her to run, but her legs felt stone cold. When he stepped closer, she risked a glance towards the store. The flickering neon sign hummed far too softly. as if it had forgotten what it meant to be a beacon of safety. She imagined the inside, dark shelves, empty aisles, nothing but echoes of long-vanished customers. "Don't want to ignore me now, do you?" The driver's grin widened, and he took a step forward, revealing a hunting knife glinting in the gloom. Her breath caught in her throat. Jessica spun around, her heart racing, and bolted for the store's entrance. The door creaked like a ghost's wail as she shoved her way through, the air inside stale and thick with the scent of decay. Her eyes flitted around, searching for a weapon, or at least something to barricade the door. But all she found were dusty shelves and empty drink coolers. This was a graveyard of a once bustling life. She heard the crunch of gravel as the door swung back open behind her. "You think you can hide?" he taunted. "That'll just make it more fun." Frantic, Jessica stumbled backward, glancing around. A small broom lay discarded in a corner. She snatched it up, her fingers curling around the handle as if it was a lifeline. A rush of adrenaline surged through her, stripping fear down to bare necessity. She couldn't let him catch her. She needed to find a way out. "Where are you hiding, nurse?" he called out, his voice echoing through the empty space, amplifying her dread. "You turned down my help. Now you'll regret it." The sense of being hunted consumed her. She could almost hear her own heartbeat, pounding in sync with a countdown to her doom. She had to keep moving, had to find a way past him before he caught up. The thought of what lay outside made her stomach churn, but beyond the creeping fear curled a burning rage. How dare he think she was an easy target? Just as she thought she spotted a side exit, the sound of shattered glass made her freeze. His knife glinted menacingly as he stepped over the wreckage of a door he had shattered. "Not escaping me that easy." Jessica's resolve steeled within her, and she sprinted toward the side exit against the bitter taste of terror rising in her throat. Would it be her salvation, or the final step into an abyss? Only one thing was certain. In Millfield, hidden horrors lurked just beyond her reach. The door burst open, and just before she could escape, a figure stepped into her path. Dark and chilling, it stopped her cold. Had she misjudged the shadows? "Welcome to my domain." With her heart racing and her mind screaming for action, Jessica knew she had one choice left: face whatever lay ahead or cower in darkness. Where was her salvation? Or had she run headfirst into an even darker fate waiting beyond the veil? Jessica recoiled, her breath hitching in her throat. The figure that blocked her path was a woman, her dark hair matted and tangled as if she'd just crawled from the underbrush. But it was the gaunt look in her sunken eyes and the wild tension in her frame that struck terror into Jessica's heart. The woman raised a bloodied finger to her lips, a haunting gesture demanding silence, before whispering, "You shouldn't be here." The sound of crunching gravel behind Jessica sent icy spikes of fear through her spine. She dared not turn, knowing that if she did, it could mean the end. "What do you mean?" she rasped, barely holding on to her sanity. The woman's haunted gaze flicked past her, as if sensing the presence of something far more sinister than shadows in the corners. "Run!" the woman urged, her voice low and trembling. "He's coming!" Suddenly, the chilling laughter of the man echoed through the store, bouncing off the barren walls. "I can smell you," he shouted, his voice like nails on a chalkboard. Jessica instinctively backed away from the dark figure in front of her, the broom clutched tightly in her hands, her heart thudding in a frantic rhythm, every pulse urging her to flee. The woman lunged forward, her eyes wide with urgency. "Go, now!" Without thought, Jessica turned and darted to the right, unceremoniously crashing into a display of canned food that fell like dominoes. She didn't look back. She couldn't afford to. The store felt like a labyrinth, every turn an abyss hidden in darkness. She stumbled past cracked shelves, items long past expiration dates, and dust bunnies that danced under the flickering fluorescent lights. She was a caged animal, adrenaline flooding her senses as she desperately searched for a way out. Behind her, heavy footsteps slammed against the floor, their sound echoed with menace. "Where are you?" The voice was more sinister now, dripping with an expectation of victory. "You're just prolonging the fun." Jessica spotted a staircase at the back of the store. its ominous presence promising either sanctuary or a deeper nightmare. With a surge of instinct that overrode her reason, she lunged toward it, the clanking metal threatening to echo her path. The handrail was sticky, but she forced herself to grip it, flying up the stairs two at a time, her breath quickening. As she reached the top, she found a door marked with peeling paint, a potential escape route. She pushed it open, feeling a gust of cold air that sent shivers through her body. Darkness spilled in, but it had to be better than whatever prowled behind her. Stepping into the alleyway beyond, she stumbled, her foot catching on uneven pavement. Her legs buckled for an instant, but she regained her balance, continuing into the narrowing abyss. The air was thick with dread, and the shadows felt alive as they twisted around her. Suddenly, the door slammed behind her with a deafening crash. Jessica whipped around, her pulse racing. From the dim light spilling out, she saw him silhouetted in the threshold, the knife dancing in his hand like a serpent ready to strike. "Nowhere to run, baby!" he shouted, the gleeful malice in his tone freezing her blood. She was trapped, cornered between the wall of the building and the encroaching darkness of the alley. With nowhere left to flee, she made a choice. Rather than allow fear to consume her, Jessica summoned every ounce of strength within her. She brandished the broom like a lance, her resolve igniting like a flame in the engulfing night. "Get away from me!" As she charged at him, the world slowed, the air filled with a tension so heavy it felt almost suffocating. She fully braced herself for the moment where desperation collided with madness. In that heartbeat of time, she had one thought. This fight was hers to win, or lose. But what she didn't know was that another figure loomed behind her, hidden in the shadows, ready to change everything. Just as Jessica lunged forward, the universe seemed to tilt. A sharp gasp erupted from the shadows behind her. She turned, and her heart sank. A tall figure stepped into the dimness, cloaked in black. The blood dripped from the knife in his hand, pooling on the ground like dark ink slowly spreading. The newcomer's face was obscured, but his presence was palpable, an overwhelming darkness to rival the alley itself. "Surprise, darling," the lurking man said, his voice smooth, almost welcoming. Jessica froze, her grip on the broom tightening painfully. She shifted her weight, torn between battling the knife-wielding man in front of her and facing the unknown threat looming behind. Panic surged, clawing at her mind. Could she fight them both? Then, the first man bellowed again, more derisive this time. "Don't think you can win this, sweetheart. You can't escape!" Before Jessica could react, he lunged at her. She swung the broom, the stiff bristles connecting with his shoulder. He stumbled back, shocked, and for a fleeting moment she felt a spark of hope. But that moment evaporated when the shadowy figure behind her took a step forward, his intent unmistakable. "Stop! Back off!" she screamed, her voice raw and trembling. "Why not make this fun?" he replied, his eyes glinting with cruel enthusiasm. "You've got a friend now." Desperation clawed up Jessica's throat. She could almost taste the burning fear, each heartbeat echoing a silent plea for survival. She cast a frantic glance around the dark alley, seeking any escape. The walls seemed to close in, their grimy surfaces closing off her options. "Think you can swing that broom all night?" the knife wielder taunted, shaking off the blow as if it were a mere nuisance. Blood dripped from his arm, but he persisted, a sick grin spreading. In that moment of distraction, the other figure advanced, creeping closer. The stench of sweat and something else pungent filled the air. Jessica's mind raced. She remembered the woman's warning. If she was to escape, it couldn't be with mere fighting. She needed to outsmart them. "Are you just going to stand there, girl?" the shadowed man sneered. "We can play chase all night if you want." Then, like a switch being flipped, her thoughts collided with an idea. If they were distracted, perhaps she could create a diversion. With sudden resolve, she pulled back and hurled the broom as hard as she could toward the dumpster, sending it crashing against the metal. The sound like a thunderclap in the silence. Both men whipped their heads in the direction of the noise. It was a split-second opening, a sliver of opportunity. "Run!" she thought, the panic urging her legs forward. She dashed toward the edge of the alley, the darkness swallowing her like a hungry beast. The world around her felt chaotic, the air thick with fear. Behind her the yells of the men echoed, their frustration now palpable, but hope ebbed as she reached the mouth of the alley. She hesitated, glancing back. Where the hell would she go? They could be anywhere, but she knew she couldn't stop. Her feet pushed forward again as the adrenaline surged. She was caught between the devil she faced and the horrors that lurked just around the corner. But before she could escape, a chill racing through her body, she heard one last thing. A whisper of laughter that sent ice through her veins. "No matter where you go, we'll find you." And with that, Jessica dashed into the night, unaware of just how deep the nightmare would run. But what awaited her in the streets beyond? Jessica sprinted into the night. The city's lights blurred into streaks as she raced down the street. Each footfall echoed like a drumbeat of dread, resonating in her chest. The laughter, a haunting melody, chased her, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. She could still hear it, distant yet sinister, clawing at the edges of her sanity. Ahead, the shadows of the buildings loomed. She ducked into a narrow side street, praying for darkness to hide her. Her breath came in jagged bursts, cheeks flushed from the cold night air and the acidic taste of fear. She nestled against the damp wall, heart hammering, listening, straining to hear anything, even the faintest whisper of footsteps. But there was nothing. Silence bled into the urban cacophony. Car engines, distant shouts, laughter from midnight revelers. She couldn't take the risk of standing still, though. She needed a plan, a way to shake them off her trail. Slowly, she started walking, her eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of threat. Her mind darted back to the alley, the images of the two men flashing before her as if on repeat. The knife, that sickening grin, the overwhelming sense of being hunted. No, she wouldn't let that happen. As she rounded the corner, an old flophouse came into view. Its windows grimy, a flickering neon sign buzzing sporadically overhead. There was a glint of hope. Maybe someone inside could help. With a glance over her shoulder, she pushed the door open, a rusty jangle sounding as she stepped inside. The interior was dimly lit, filled with stale air and the potent scent of cheap cigarettes. A figure slouched behind the front desk, surprised by her sudden entrance. The man was older, unshaven, his eyes bleary and unfocused. "What do you want?" he croaked, the words saturated with irritation. "Please, I need help, there are—" Jessica gasped, struggling to articulate the terror she felt. Yeah, we all need help. You can't just barge in here," he growled, glancing away dismissively. "Listen," she snapped, her voice sharper than intended. "I'm being chased. I think they're going to—" Suddenly, the door slammed open. Jessica didn't need to turn around to know who it was. The man in black entered the flophouse, followed by the eerily calm knife-wielder. Panic surged again, flooding her with adrenaline. They had found her. "Looking for a place to hide, love," the first man said, a sickly grin lighting up his face. The other man surveyed the room, eyes narrowed, looking for signs of where she might have gone. In a split second, decisions raced through her mind. She had to act, and fast. She tore down the narrow corridor at the back of the building, heart throbbing, feet pounding against the worn floorboards. There had to be a way out, an emergency exit or a window. Just ahead, at the end of the hallway, she spotted a door with a flickering light overhead. Jessica hurled her body against it, slamming it open. It led to a stairwell that spiraled down into darkness. The musty air clawed at her lungs as she descended, each step echoing like a warning bell. She glanced up, instinct urging her to move. Feet thumping through the hallway called out behind her. They would be close. The laughter echoed again, this time tinged with excitement. They enjoyed the chase. Jessica pressed on, her eyes straining to adjust. At the bottom of the stairs, she found herself in a basement that reeked of mildew and despair. Bare bulbs swung from wires like ghosts. In the far corner, stacks of something, boxes, bags. She dove behind them, pulling the shadows around her. Her heart pounded in her ears. If she could just stay quiet, just until they passed. But then she heard it, a dragging sound, something heavy being pulled across the floor. Jessica's breath hitched. She wasn't alone. Was there more to this nightmare? What else was lurking in the shadows waiting for her? Jessica pressed her back against the cold, damp boxes, praying their scent of decay and neglect would mask her presence. The dragging sound grew louder, closer, and her heart raced to a frantic tempo. She clenched her fists, nails biting into her palms as she fought the urge to scream. The heaviness of the air wrapped around her, and she fought back tears. Fear surged anew when she realized she couldn't distinguish the dragging from the footfalls that echoed from above. Had they come down already? Mixed with her terror, she felt the weight of despair. She hadn't come this far to give in. The dragging stopped. Silence settled in again, thick and oppressive. But it wasn't just silence, it was poised for violence, anticipatory. Jessica glanced from her hiding spot, squinting into the shadowy corners of the basement. It seemed alive, breathing like a monster watching her. And then came a whisper, soft yet slicing through the darkness. "Where are you hiding, little mouse?" A chill cascaded down her spine. It was the man in black, his voice low and mocking. The laughter echoed again, making a mockery of her fear. She felt lightheaded, her breath coming out in frantic bursts. They were toying with her, turning her survival into a sport. This had to end. Jessica took a deep breath, forcing her trembling body into motion. She crawled carefully, shifting towards the far end of the room. There were more shadows there, more places to hide. If she could get to the corner, maybe her chances would improve. She edged slowly, avoiding the creaking floorboards, each scrape amplifying the fear crawling through her veins. Again that dragging sound resumed, lower this time, and she pressed herself against the ground like it was her last refuge. The dark was a knife, slicing away her courage. She peered through the gaps between the boxes and saw something that made her heart freeze. A large, dark shape was moving closer, dragging behind it. A body? Dread pooled in her stomach. Was it lifeless? She forced herself to look again, but it was gone. In its place, the man with the knife stepped into view. "Jessica, did you think we'd leave you here?" His grin cut into the shadows, vibrant and sickening. Her breath quickened. The exit. Could she make it? The stairs loomed behind him, a means of escape, but also an invitation to violence. She could see them both now, smirking, eyes glinting like hunters spotting prey. Then it happened. She stumbled against a metal pipe sticking out from the ground, a single clang breaking the stillness. Panic surged through her as both men turned sharply, their faces morphing into masks of predatory delight. "Found you!" the knife wielder hissed, starting forward. Jessica shot up and ran for the far wall, adrenaline pumping through her like wildfire. She heard their footsteps pounding behind her, a chaotic symphony of pursuit, closing in fast. No, she was not going to be cornered. The flickering bulb above buzzed angrily, casting erratic shadows that danced like ghosts around her. She pushed herself harder, to the edge of those shadows, desperately searching for anything that could help her escape. Behind her, the laughter grew louder, consumed by bloodlust. But just as she reached the wall, she felt something beneath her hand. An old door with peeling paint, slightly ajar. She yanked it open, feet barely catching her balance as the door swung wide, revealing a narrow crawl space. It felt like a pit of despair but offered freedom, small as it was. Without a second thought, she dove into the darkness, the door slamming shut behind her, muffling the chaos outside. Jessica crawled, heart hammering, pushing deeper into the unknown. The air was stale, smells of dirt and decay creeping into her senses. She could still hear them, voices growing distant but not fading, their promise of possession hanging heavy in the air. What had she stumbled into? What was lurking in this darkness? With every inch forward, dread coiled tighter. Her fate uncertain. What hell awaited her at the end of this tunnel? The crawl space seemed endless, and each inch Jessica moved felt like a step deeper into a nightmare. The narrow passage was suffocating, forcing her to press her body against the cold earth. Her mind raced along with her heart. They could come for her any moment. The faint sounds of her pursuers faded, but silence didn't mean safety. It could mean they were waiting, poised and patient. Jessica shivered, the chill creeping deeper as she soaked in the dampness around her. The walls were slimy, a grim testament to dark things that may have crawled these very paths before her. "Keep going," she whispered to herself, the words barely making it past her chattering teeth. Each breath felt like a weight on her chest. If she stopped, it would consume her. Suddenly, a muffled noise echoed through the tunnel. A faint scraping, almost rhythmic, as if something was methodically approaching. Her heart leaped to her throat. She pressed on, clawing at the dirt and twisted roots that lined her path. The cloying scent of damp earth filled her nostrils, but all she could think of was the potential horror that awaited behind her. Then, the scraping stopped. Jessica froze. The silence seemed to breathe, and in that heaviness she could hear her own heartbeat, a brutal reminder of mortality. A sound, sharp and unexpected, trickled through, like nails dragging against metal. What had she crawled into? Fear clenched her insides as shadows danced behind her, each flicker caught from the dim light filtering through the cracks she hadn't noticed before. Jessica's pulse raced anew. A warning bell. She had to keep moving. But where was the end of this tunnel? Darkness enveloped her senses, and panic bubbled inside, spilling over thoughts of escape. A flash of desperate hope surged through her. If she could just reach the other side, she might find a way out. With renewed determination, she pushed forward, hands scraping against rough ground until her fingers brushed against something smooth and hard. A pipe? A rock? The metallic feel sent electric shock waves through her, and she shifted to better examine it, her breath coming louder in the oppressive stillness. She grabbed it and pulled. It shifted beneath her grasp, revealing an old rusty grate. Relief washed over her. Could this be her salvation? She pushed against it, grunting as it scraped painfully against age-old hinges. And then she heard it, a sound that froze her in place. Heavy footfalls approached, echoing ominously against the confines of her tunnel. Jessica's breath hitched. They were closer, so much closer. It was no longer just a game for them. They were no longer toying with her, they were hunting. "Don't let her escape." The voice hissed through the darkness, harsh and commanding. Instinct kicked in. She had to get out. With a final heave, the grate creaked open, revealing a dim, musty escape. Without thinking, she flung herself through, casting aside her concern for the unknown surrounding her. The space opened up into a small, grimy room, dimly lit by a single light bulb dangling from the ceiling. Shadows stretched across the walls, twisted shapes dancing ominously. Jessica quickly scanned the area. There, an old rotting door at the far end. It could lead to the outside. Hope surged anew, but a noise behind her made her stomach drop. The man in black stepped into view, his form silhouetted against the dim light. "Did you really think you could leave?" The sinister smile twisted across his face. Panic engulfed her. The door. She had to reach it. She burst into motion, sprinting across the room, her adrenaline-fueled strides against the floor sending echoes reverberating around her. But could she outpace the darkness that lingered behind? As she reached for the door, a hand shot out from the shadows, grabbing her ankle. "Nowhere to run, Jessica!" Her scream caught in her throat. What awaited her back in that darkness? The question lingered in the air, suffocating, as she fought to break free. Her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage. Panic surged as she desperately clawed at the floor, her fingers gasping for any purchase to pry her free from the grip that threatened to drag her back into darkness. A flash of terror clawed at her throat. She couldn't go back. The very thought made bile rise. With a frenzied twist, Jessica kicked out, connecting with something solid. The force surprised the man in black, and she felt his grip falter for just an instant. Seizing the moment, she yanked her leg free. Stumbling forward, she sprinted for the door, adrenaline coursing, her lungs burning as she pushed herself harder. She slammed her hand against the door, praying it wouldn't be locked. As she twisted the handle, a bone-chilling laugh echoed behind her. "You think you're escaping?" the man taunted, his voice dripping with malice, slicing through the air like a knife. The door opened with a screech, and she hurled herself through, stumbling into darkness that felt infinitely larger. Jessica squinted, trying to find her bearings, but the space was filled with shadows that reached across the walls, conforming to the flickering light behind her. "Leave her," echoed a command, but she couldn't stop. She ran, no destination in mind, just the primal urge to flee. The corridor stretched endlessly, twisting this way and that, reminding her disorientingly of the crawl space she had just escaped. Suddenly she skidded to a halt. A window. The soft glow of moonlight spilled through the dingy glass. Hope flared inside her. She could escape. She raced toward it, but as she reached the pane, her fingers grazed it and she gasped. It was barred, the iron grates cruelly locking her into a prison of her own terror. "No!" she screamed, pounding on the window, her voice cracking against the silence. Tears of frustration stung her eyes. Behind her, the heavy footfalls began again, resounding through the corridor, approaching with dreadful purpose. "Do you want to know what happens next?" The man's voice slithered through the air, filling it with dread. He was close. She could feel it. A chill crept over her, coaxing forth memories of all the cornered animals she had watched in nature documentaries, frantically searching for escape. She was prey now. In the far corner of the room sat an old, dusty cabinet. Desperation fueled her instincts. With trembling hands, she darted toward it, yanking the door open. Inside, she found nothing but discarded scraps, rust-stained tools, and a thick layer of old dust. The clang of footsteps grew louder, a deafening cacophony echoing off the damp walls. She could almost taste her fear, cloying like the mold that grew in the corners. Then something flickered through the dark, just behind her. A shadow. No, more than one. No. Jessica did not turn. She could hear their whispers, feel their malice drip from the air. Can't end like this. Time slowed as her brain scrambled for solutions. She spotted a loose piece of wood protruding from the cabinet. A weapon? She clasped it, its rough surface grounding her dwindling resolve. Then, launching herself back toward the door, her heart thundered in her ears. She had to hold her ground, had to keep them back. Just as she positioned herself, the door swung open with a jolt, and the first figure stepped through. Gnarled fingers, contorted face, eyes glinting with a twisted hunger. "You become one of us now," it hissed, a grotesque smile spreading on its lips. Jessica brandished the makeshift weapon, instinct sparking fury inside her. She steeled herself, ready to fight, heart racing for freedom against the precipice of despair. But then the shadows behind the figure seemed to ripple and shift, merging into something larger, something waking. What was coming for her? What horrors were unleashed in this liminal space? Jessica's grip tightened around the wooden weapon as the grotesque figure lurched closer. Her heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat of survival. She had never fought anyone before, had never imagined herself in a scenario like this. With every ounce of courage, she positioned herself, breathing heavily, ready to defend against the nightmare that had caught her in its clutches. "You don't want to do that," the figure rasped, its voice a sinister whisper. It was as if it could taste her fear, the words dripping with malevolence. "You can't win." The shadows elongated around the creature, forming grotesque shapes that seemed to crawl along the walls. Each one moved with a life of its own, twisting and turning like snakes in water. Jessica's grip wavered for just a second. The weight of despair pressed down on her, a feeling so oppressive she thought she might crumble beneath it. But she wouldn't. Not today. Somewhere deep inside, a flicker of hope ignited. "You can't give in. Not now," she shouted, her voice echoing against the cold walls, echoing with defiance. "I'm not going to be one of you." With that, she lunged forward, swinging the makeshift weapon with all her strength. It connected with a dull thud against the figure's shoulder. For a fleeting moment, surprise flickered across its twisted face, and Jessica seized her chance. She darted to the side, her feet pounding against the filthy floor, guiding her deeper into the shadows of the room. The doorway loomed ahead, a sliver of potential escape, but the monstrous figure recovered quickly. "You can't run from what you are," it hissed, and that voice reverberated through the air like an unwanted echo. Jessica sprinted, dodging to the left as another figure emerged from the darkness, hunched but moving with unnatural speed. The shadows behind them roiled, shifting into something even larger, something that seemed to pulse with a lifelike hunger. Panic surged anew, threatening to drown her like a tidal wave. The phantoms began to whisper, voices in a cryptic language mixing into a cacophony of chaos. Words she couldn't understand, resonating with dark intensity, filled her mind with an oppressive weight. "Join us," they chanted, wrapping around her, taunting her. "You'll never escape." She reached for the door. If she could get through, maybe, just maybe, there was hope. Then crashing through the air came a sound so loud it nearly shattered her eardrums. A frenzied shriek, a chorus of ghosts that made her skin crawl, more chilling than fear itself. The figures lunged, their long fingers outstretched like hungry claws ready to snatch her back into the abyss. Jessica ducked, narrowly avoiding their grasp. But in her frantic movement, her foot snagged on something on the floor, sending her crashing to the ground. The rough surface scraped her palms, but she couldn't dwell on the pain. In a whirlwind of instinct, she rolled onto her back, the weapon clattering from her fingers. The figures hesitated. An opening, however brief, glimmered before her. Gritting her teeth, she scrambled to her feet, heart racing, breath coming in short, sharp gasps. But as she turned towards the doorway, the colossal shadow loomed over her, blocking the only exit. It swirled, shifting ominously as it took shape. The terror was palpable. A veil of despair gnawed at her resolve. "Stay with us," the shadows whispered, their intentions clear, wrapping around her like chains made of darkness. Jessica's eyes widened, a surge of pure adrenaline tearing through her. With one last desperate push, she darted toward the wall, pressing against it as if it might offer some kind of sanctuary. As the creatures closed in, she screamed again, a sound of defiance, of raw survival. But would it be enough? Would she find the strength from somewhere deep within, or would she become yet another whisper among the shadows? The darkness pulsated around her, gathering, thickening like fog. Straining her eyes, she searched for anything, any hope of escape. What terrible truths and dreadful decisions awaited her in the heart of this nightmare? The shadows thickened, their chorus rising in anticipation, a singular voice echoing ominously. "This is only the beginning." But what would that beginning mean for Jessica? Would she find a way to reclaim her life? Or was she destined to descend deeper into the darkness? Jessica's heart raced as the darkness coiled closer, wrapping around her like an inescapable noose. The whispers grew louder, almost mocking her, echoing within the confines of her mind. Shadows danced and twisted, hungry for her despair. But she couldn't let it consume her. She wouldn't. Desperation drove her to act. She scanned her surroundings, focusing on the shapes of the shadows, looking for any weakness. With a resolve that burned through her fear, she lunged towards the wall, searching for anything she could use. The memories of the woman's warning flooded her mind. "You shouldn't be here." The unspoken threat gnawed at her, but so did the flicker of hope that pushed her forward. "Get away from me," she shouted, her voice ringing out with an unexpected strength. It was a challenge, a fierce cry against the dread that loomed. Jessica dashed toward the open corner, her lungs burning, the smell of mildew heavy in the air. Just ahead she spotted something, a broken chair lying in a heap of debris. She reached it, feeling its weight as she hoisted it up. Maybe it was just a chair, but right now it felt like a shield against the encroaching darkness. The shadowy figures hissed, recoiling slightly as if surprised by her defiance. "You can't fight what you are," one of them sneered, its elongated fingers gesturing toward her. But she wasn't fighting them. She was fighting for herself. Summoning every ounce of courage, she swung the chair, the sound of wood hitting air echoing through the heavy atmosphere. "I am not yours to take," she screamed, her voice cutting through the haze of dread. With unexpected ferocity, Jessica charged into the group of phantoms, seeing the flickers of surprise in their monstrous forms. The wooden chair connected with one of the creatures, sending a shockwave of disbelief through the assembly. It stumbled back, revealing a glimpse into the shadows. Beyond them was a faint light flickering at the end of the corridor, a way out. Encouraged by the sight, Jessica sprinted past the disoriented figures, her heart fluttering with the promise of freedom. The shadows writhed in anger, but she didn't stop. The light ahead grew brighter, pulling her in like a moth to a flame. "Run," she told herself, clinging to the hope that surged through her. The whispers turned to howls, powerful and menacing, as they lunged toward her. But the power of her will surged with every step she took. She could feel the weight of despair lifting. It fueled her onward. With each stride, she felt the barrier between her and freedom thinning, as if the shadows couldn't keep pace. Jessica burst into the golden glow, engulfing her in warmth. She blinked against the brightness and swung around, the light intensifying as she confronted the darkness behind her. "Stay!" she shouted, a final declaration, raising the remains of the chair like a weapon. The darkness halted, and for a brief moment, time warped into an eerie silence, as if the shadows recognized her resolve. Then, with a deafening roar, the figures recoiled, howling in fury as they were swallowed by the light. They twisted and dissipated, their anguished cries fading into nothingness. Jessica stumbled back, her legs trembling as exhaustion washed over her. She had done it. Against all odds, she had found her way through the merciless night. Stepping out into the cool air, she felt alive. Alive like never before. The moon, bright and unyielding, shone down and wrapped her in its comforting embrace. The sounds of the outside world rushed back to her. The distant chatter of people, the hum of cars, the very essence of life. And in that moment, she knew she would never take it for granted again. As she turned, anxiety lifted from her chest, replaced by a fierce sense of survival. She was done being afraid. Jessica took a deep breath, allowing the chill of the night to ground her. She was ready to leave Millfield behind, to reclaim her life. But she would carry the memory of her encounter forever. Now, as Jessica walked away from the shadows, her heart full of determination, she felt empowered. No longer just a survivor of the night, she was a warrior against the darkness. Just then, a thought struck her. This was only the end of one story. As she stepped into the light of a new day, she couldn't help but think of all the stories out there, of hope, courage, and battles fought against the darkness. And that's where you, my friends, come in. You need to subscribe now to catch the next gripping adventure, because only true fans understand the importance of keeping the spirit of survival alive. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about Jessica's journey. Your voices matter, and I love hearing what you have to say. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let them join us in celebrating the triumph over darkness. Together, let's make sure no one feels alone when facing their fears. This is the moment to show your support for the stories that connect us.